Moving on, I think the next session, and a very interesting session, much talked about after big data, I think along with the big data, is on the security aspect. And the next session that we have is a maximizing cybersecurity in an age of uncertain times. I think multiple times we get to see the headlines that this much of security breach happened. And today we have our next speaker with us, who is much more seasoned in this area, Mr. Parmalai Jayaraman, from Head of System Audit from Revit, to share the insight on the emerging risk and increasing cyber threats and how to address them. Just quick introduction about him. He's very well known in the industry as JPM. He heads the system audit vertical at Revit. He has more than 2 decades of industry experience in the area of IT, and more specifically in the information and cybersecurity domain. He was leading the information security function for a large IT enterprise as a global chief information security officer with the responsibility of protecting customer data for global Fortune 500 companies. Mr. Parmalai possesses master degree in mathematics and postgraduate diploma in computer science and application. He has also completed postgraduate diploma in business analytics and business intelligence, jointly offered by Great Lakes Institute of Management, Chennai, and Illinois Institute of Management, USA. He also has his credit to multiple prestigious certification in cybersecurity. I would not name, it's a long list, sir. He has been presenting and speaking in many domestic and international conferences and moderated a number of sessions as a chair. He is also in the receipt of top 100 CISO award. Without much further detailing out, I think attendees are more keen to hear more on the cybersecurity. So handing it over to you, sir.
So good evening to all of you. Thanks for taking your time to participate, and apologies for the couple of minutes delay from my side because of the slide logistic issue. During the next 20 minutes, we are going to talk about the cybersecurity, which is a buzzword today. While I am saying today, we'll see on the slide, while it may not be true that cybersecurity is a buzzword today, it is happening quite for some time. Just moving on to the next slide, what we are going to cover briefly is we'll first try to understand the context and then some of the breaches, what's happened globally as well as in the domestic, that is Indian market, specifically more focus on the BFSI. And then what are the threats which are evolving and it's continuing to evolve. And very briefly on the countermeasures as well. Typically, if you notice, when it comes to the cybersecurity, the threats ranging varieties, starting from the normal malware and then the ransomware to varieties of threats. But when it comes to the countermeasures, is far handful of few. That's a brief overview here. Just moving on to the next slide, we'll talk about globally what type of threats which is being seen. Can you just move on to the next slide? Yeah. So here, if you really look at it, what type of threats which is happening, just to get the context, onto your left side top, we talk about ransomware. Ransomware is nothing but, in a conventional example, without getting into too much of technical, it's something like a conventional world, how people do a kidnapping, right? Somebody being kidnapped and then some money being asked, if money not being given, the individual being either robbed or being killed or being whatever attack being happening on the individual. The same thing is happening on the cybersecurity world as well. It ranges from an individual system being taken into kidnap in the form of a conventional world example, or in the US kind of places where the complete city being taken into control by the cyber criminals. That's the kind of stuff which is happening. The specific case in point, Citrix servers is being ransomware attack happened, and then the cyber criminals asked for the ransomware. Typically, this ransomware being cyber criminals were asking money in the form of Bitcoin. That's a clear difference, because the Bitcoin is in the underground market. Again, on the left-hand side, you talk about the serious cyber attack on the Hackney Council services in the London. Both the government varieties of services being offered, and many of these services, be it a home services or be it a citizen services, all these services were taken offline. On the right-hand side top, you look at it, all the celebrities, be it technology, big guys, as well as the big politicians are their Twitter accounts being taken into control by the cyber criminals by means of sending fake tweets, which is also admitted by the Twitter. On the bottom, we are also having a CMA CGM website being taken offline. Again, availability concerns, right? And below, you can see Indiabulls confirmed cipher attack as its data leak has happened in the public domain. So the net message here is nobody is spared. In fact, ranging from banking, financial securities, retail, manufacturing, telecom, no company is spared across all the places. So that is a kind of cipher attack when we talk about both domestically as well as internationally. Just moving on to the next slide, on which we can talk about cyber attack.
Just a small request, sir. Your camera, if you can adjust, I think, yeah, a little bit. Yes, we can't see your.
Yeah, I can move towards your right.
Yes.
Okay.
No, little towards the other side.
Is it better now?
No, you go to the other side.
I can't see myself. 1 second. I will stop and start the video again.
Yeah. You have to move
to your
left side a bit. Left side a bit.
Okay.
Little more.
Little more.
Is it better now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you. So due to some reason, I'm not able to see my own video. All right. So let us move on to the cybersecurity incidents, what has happened globally. Well, we all must be familiar on the central bank attack, which has happened in Bangladesh Bank, which is also quoted by the SEBI circulars in number of communications, whatever happened. Just taking one step backward, Saudi Aramco, which is a big oil giant, Sony, which is a big electronic company, and Maersk, which is a shipping giant. All these places, there is an availability related attack happened. And people, this not now, this I would say that at least 10, 15, 20 years back, each one of this attack, there is a big business impact and financial loss. Typically, those days, people think that cipher attack is purely meant for fun purpose or demonstrating individual technical competency purpose. This is an incident on which people realize it is just not fun. It is just not for demonstrating technical competency, but also how much impact it could cause from a business point of view. Then this may not have got good attention, but when we come to the Bangladesh Central Bank, the sophistication level is far, far higher. The attack is well planned, executed on a Thursday, and Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Friday, Bangladesh being closed, Saturday, Sunday, US being closed. It took a whole lot of time for Central Bank of Bangladesh to coordinate, to understand where the money went, how do we withdraw the money, how do we recover, how do we respond. It's a very well-planned, executed attack by the cybersecurity hackers, criminals. And the same trend continues further as well, even today, as of now. The next one, I'm sure you all will be familiar on the Securities and Exchange Commission. They are not spared. And the key takeaway for me, at least, I'm sure you will appreciate, the attack has happened sometime in 2016, which means the organization do not even know when exactly the attack has happened, but it is detected in 2017. That's a key differentiation. The unique factor when it comes to the cybersecurity or information security is one should know when the attack has happened. If you talk about a conventional world, if somebody is stealing the money, we will know immediately the money is taken away, or within few minutes, within few hours, depending upon the status of that individual. Whereas when it comes to the information is taken out only when something is misused or abused. At that time only we will know. So that's a very key factor. That's also a challenge. Closer home, further, more and more incidents started happening in India, particularly in banking. Union Bank of India, Bank of Maharashtra, Hitachi Payment is place where 3.2 million cards being stolen. And then some other banks choose to reissue a new card as well. Ransomware, ATM jackpotting. You must be knowing some of the cases on which people go with a gunny bag and then insert a USB stick into the ATM and then the money started flowing in. You will think that it's like a movie, but in reality, cyber criminals are really making movies and reality life now today. Other data exposure, though it may not have a direct impact, it indeed has an indirect impact on the banking sector. Not only banking, BFSI as a whole, because everywhere Aadhaar is being used as a primary factor for authentication. Well, you reissue the card, but when it comes to the biometric, we can't replace the biometric of an individual. Hence, the security is of paramount importance. And of course, cross-border transactions when it comes to the SWIFT as well. So that is on the global side as well as domestic side, number of security attack, whatever happened. Just moving on further, I will just pick up key points here, a timeline of every month. If you really look at it, earlier days, it used to happen once in a year. It used to happen once in 2-3 years. and once in a quarter. Nowadays, trend is almost every month some attack are rather happened, right? Now I'll pick up only some of the key points here rather than talking about everything. On a Calcutta airport services disturbed because of cybersecurity attack. On the May month, key factor here is Urban Cooperative Bank. The point here, what we should remember is, somebody will say that, look, the attack will not happen to me because I'm not a big organization. I'm a small stockbroker. I'm a small depository account. I'm a small bank. Doesn't matter. Today, the hackers, like each one of us, how we don't have time, the cyber criminals also don't have time. They will try to attack where the controls are weak, where the security technologies are weak, or the competent personnel is not there, or the processes are not efficient. Hence, if you are connected on the internet, if you as an individual or you as an organization, small, big, doesn't matter, you'll be prone for getting attacked in some form or other. That's a key takeaway message here. Now, coming to pick up the other point, during September, all these timelines given is from January to December, is during the year of 2019. As we all know, social engineering-based attack in the form of audio-based calls, either by greed or fear, individuals being duped and money being taken. Now, new trend is somebody sending a mail. For example, in your case, I will take example just to articulate. I will send a mail on behalf of CEO, Mr. Sir Muralidharan Sir, and send a mail to his colleague. They will think that it is CEO sending a mail and transfer the money or do some activity which could cause either financial damage or reputational damage. This is from the mail point of view. The deepfake is happening even from audio and video point of view. Today, as you know, with artificial intelligence, machine learning, Sir talked about in the previous section, I could not attend fully, we beautifully articulated. Today, even artificial intelligence is being used by the hackers. We are using it for good purpose as a good guy. The hackers are using it from bad point of view. So how much you can rely on audio, how much you can rely on video, how much you can rely on mail, everything is doubtful today's world. I'm not saying that we should not use technology. We should remember security in every single work what we do digitally. That's a key takeaway, at least for me, I want to articulate to all of us. And the next one is the Airbus suffered supply chain attack. Supply chain is very, very vital. The suppliers today, whether we like it or not, be it a bank or any other place, we all provide services from a business point of view. We need to rely on suppliers, vendors from the expertise and experience, competency point of view. But they need to be managed very well from a governance, service level agreement point of view, which is true even for stockbrokers as well as depository accounts as well. Just moving on to the next slide. Yeah, so this is, I'm sure you all will be familiar. We all must be getting a mail about Nigeria 4 or 5 years back, right? That's a olden thing which everybody knows, that I have some 100,000 pounds available. Can you give me your email, name, phone number, I'll transfer the account. That's an old trend. Nowadays, last 5, 7, 8 years at least, the simple, easiest way for cyber criminals to get into the organization is sending a fake email, which is called phishing in a technical parlance. And then somebody clicks on that email URL, which contains a URL, and types in the user ID and password. That URL is not a correct bank's or organization's URL. And then the user ID and password is taken out. The classic example, what is being given here is your credit card has been temporarily suspended. This could come in an email, this could come in an SMS, and then we click on it and then type the user ID and password. User ID password is being stolen by the hacker, and the hacker becomes we ourselves. So the whole identity is transferred to him, and he or she can do whatever we can do as an individual authorized user. So this is most of the attack today. 95% of the attack happened by means of phishing. That's a key factor. Well, irrespective of the amount of education what we do, though I may be in a cybersecurity profession for the last 20 years, if somebody is sending a mail about my own area after doing enough Ricky about profiling about me in the market, if somebody is sending a mail about cybersecurity related interesting topic, it's quite possible I may be duped and I may click it. So the quite natural progression path that one should look at it, just not look at from prevention, we should also look at from detection, monitoring, and response. That's a key factor which organization should be focusing on. Moving on to the next slide, on which we talk about cybersecurity. Typically, people think that it is only from a technology angle. Today, if you really look at it, cybersecurity is connected across organization, every single place. Matured organization, good news is BFSI is reasonably far more mature compared to other sector, on which cybersecurity risk is embedded into all the areas. Now, it is also called as enterprise risk management, on which we have operation risk, strategic risk, and then credit risk, market risk, reputation risk. While cybersecurity risk is embedded within the operation risk area, But all other areas, whatever I talked about, everywhere cybersecurity playing a role. If there is a breach happen, it could have an impact on the partners, liquidity damage, opportunity loss in the form of reputation loss, and regulator placing a fine, and then how much remediation control that we should put in for bring it back to the normal life, complaints cuts cost, and then customers, most important, the customer. The impact is there in multiple angles. It is just not only few piece of technology servers or the hardware or software what we deploy. Cybersecurity risk exposure is there across all the areas. That's a key point which we should remember. It can't be treated as a plain vanilla pure security angle alone. That's the key message which we should remember that. Just moving on to the next slide, on which we talk about how does a financial institutions connected. I always used to take an example of an ATM. Today we made the job of a customer very, very easy. Customer, he or she walks into the ATM machine, keys in the pin, insert the ATM card, keys in the pin, enters the amount, takes away the money, and walks out from the ATM machine. That's all his or her job. Pretty very good. That's how it should be. But we made the job easier by making the backend complex, technology complex, rightfully so. Because the ATM itself contains a ATM, a pin pad, hardware, software, middleware, communication link, ATM switch, as well as core banking solution, and then credit card, debit card providers, MasterCard, Visa providers, as well as the NPCA switch, all the multiple components happening in the backend, checking the veracity checks, and fraud monitoring checks, all these things happening in a nanosecond. So there are multiple servers, multiple switches, routers, varieties of ICT components sitting there. We all, as a good guy, every single component for us, it should be working well. Whereas from a cyber criminal point of view, one small piece going wrong there is good enough for him to get into. Hence, the takeaway here is a overall pragmatic picture, cybersecurity needs to be assessed. We can't go out and tell this particular server contains stockbrokers information, customers information. If I safeguard this, good enough. May not be good enough. We need to look at the end-to-end piece. Comprehensively need to be covered. Because especially financial institutions, one bank depending on the other bank, one broker depending on another broker, depository participants connected with stockbrokers, connected with the other entities. Hence, even if one entity getting impacted, that could have a downstream impact or upstream impact. That's a key factor. When it comes to security, the key takeaway for me is we need to collaborate. We can't be competing when it comes to the cybersecurity. That's a key takeaway on this slide. Just moving on to the next slide, in the interest of time. While the complexity, what we talked about, I can talk hours together on the fear and uncertainty and doubt. That's the factor which cybersecurity professionals do. But I always used to say that the complexities, the threats keep increasing, but the fundamentals do not change when it comes to the countermeasures. We need to look at from a macro point of view, two triages. One triage is namely people, process, technology in that order. Very, very vital. Very, very vital. People, competent people, experienced people who can execute the job, as well as processes, robust processes, and enable with the technology. Unfortunately, people throw the technology first, or people start with the technology perspective first, which should not happen. That's one triage. Second triage is confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Here, when I say integrity, I'm talking from a data integrity point of view, right? Confidentiality, the data should be available to authorized users when required. Integrity, it's something like a GIGO. While garbage in and garbage out. While processing, the data should not be tampered with. That's very, very vital. Availability, the information, the server should be available when for authorized user, when required, where required, wherever required. That's a key factor. The key factor here is confidentiality, integrity one side, availability another side. One should strike a right balance. That is where the risk management playing a role. Right, because the more controls I build on confidentiality by means of password, complex passwords, I can keep building it, but possibly users may forget the password or they may write down the password in a piece of paper. So one should strike the right balance between confidentiality, integrity on one side, availability on the other side. That's where risk-based approach should come into play. Moving on to the next slide, on which we talk about some of the industry best practices. The good news is when it comes to the cybersecurity, there are enormous amount of best practices, standards, global framework, indeed present, available across, accessible to everybody. ISO 27001, which is a global framework followed by most of the organizations, and it is being certified as well. Well, I won't insist certification as a prescriptive, but to the spirit, if ISO 27000 followed, at least we are reasonably assured. When it comes to the cybersecurity, there is nothing called perfect 100% secure. We are reasonably assured. ISO 27001-5, more focus from the risk management point of view. COBIT helps in measuring metrics, balance scorecard, those kind of areas it helps. ITIL is more for the IT point of view. That is all the IT processes. Yeah, best managed IT, possibly, reasonably, less number of security incidents bound to happen. It is something like exactly what I used to take example of our physical health. If our body being managed well, the diseases could be less. Same way, if IT being managed well, when I say managed well, I'm saying combination of people, process, technology, possibility of security incidents could be lesser. PCI DSS focused more on the payment card industry, cardholder data, specifically credit card, debit card, particularly those data, how well it is prescribed, how well it is managed. The unique factor here is when it comes to the PCI, remaining areas broad level controls. When it comes to the PCI, it talks about prescriptive controls, much stringent assessment. Hence, the assessment is much more stronger here. That's a key differentiation. Moving on to the next slide on the NIST framework. Here we can just go down to the,
we have just a 1 minute left.
Yeah, I understand.
Session. Yes, I thought I'll just remind you. Yeah, go ahead.
Sure. You can just quickly flip through the slide. It will be an animated slide. So NIST slide here, we can talk about, identify, protect, detect, respond, and recover. This is a NIST framework. I can take maybe 15 seconds example you can take from a COVID point of view. Same analogy I can draw. One is identify who are attacked, who are possibly getting diseases. Protect, today we don't have, but we are coming in the form of some kind of vaccines. That is where preventive controls coming into play. Detect is basically all the detect control, whatever we have in the form of RFK, so the application, Bluetooth sharing, as well as the test, whatever test we are doing it. Respond is more of a quarantining. Recover is again quarantining, as well as using vaccine to recover. This is a broad principle. The same principle is applicable for the cybersecurity as well. Yet another key factor from a SEBI circular point of view, detect, if I compare that to this, we need to periodically audit. SEBI expects stockbrokers as well as other players to publish report on a quarterly basis to SEBI as well. So continuously need to be monitored, including vulnerability assessment, penetration test needs to be carried out. Just moving on to the last slide. Last but one slide, of course. Some of the basic cybersecurity hygiene. Here I talked about some of the examples. We talk about inventory, we talk about physical controls, we talk about network segmentations, we talk about patch management, we talk about access control, identification, access control, passwords, as well as periodically reviewing the accesses, and then email, how well it should be secured. USB, removed media is nothing but USBs as well as CDs. And then most important is employee education as well as customer education. Backup restoration helps for ensuring data is available, as well as during ransomware, it will be handy. Vendor supply risk management is very useful when you talk about governance point of view. And the vendor should be treated as a responsible. We can't be outsourcing the accountability to vendor. We can outsource the responsibility. Individual organization cannot outsource the accountability to the vendor. That's a key takeaway from this slide. Last slide, but not the least slide, most important, on which we talk about some of the myths. I can sum it up on whatever we talked about so far. It's quite possible people think that cybersecurity is a technology issue. It is a people process technology, as we talked about earlier as well. Security can be bolted onto systems going live. Even today, I won't say name the organization. There are organizations even today, line of business goes to the CEO or a CRO or a CISO. Couple of days back, before going live, the system being asked, CEO being approached, can I go live with the system? If I don't go live, I'll lose time to market. So people think that security can be ignored. The consequences will be much higher, as we discussed so far. Exposure is multiple angle. Compliance is equal to security. When it comes to the cybersecurity, even in BFSI, I would say I'm compliant with SEBI circular, I'm compliant with the RBI circular, I'm compliant with ISO 27001 is not good enough. That's a basic, bare minimum, common minimum standard. We talked about small and medium-sized enterprise. That's not, we can't say that small only will get attacked. I would take example of a simple example of smoking. Smoking, injurious to health is a risk assessment. Medical report is audit report. And then when somebody goes for ICU angioblast, that is where we talk about incident. People cannot learn after incident. It should be learned on all the areas. That's a key factor. Okay, so security cannot be ensured just by deploying a firewall or antivirus. It should be deployed at each and every layer, both process and technology and people side. Cybersecurity threats will always happen from outside, may not be true. Inside attack is equally important. In fact, I would say inside attack is more important, because all the attack, what will happen, cyber criminals coming and sitting inside the enterprise, observing digitally what is happening over a period of weeks and months and quarters, and then really initiating an attack. Last but not the least, CISO alone is not accountable. IT team alone is not accountable. Entire organization is accountable for, with clear responsibilities clearly articulated. I know I've taken slightly more time than what is allotted to me. Thank you so much for listening to me. If Sheetal and Muralidharan sir permits, I'll take one question, otherwise we'll wind up. Thank you so much for listening.
Yes, I will. I am sure, sir. I think you've already showcased the facet of cybersecurity. I think 20 minutes is very less time. It can have in itself a 2 days conference. We really understood that by the practical example that you shared it with us. I think the cyber criminals are more innovative, and we need to be more innovative than them. I think that's the next session. If anybody has a question, I would not see any question popping up. Thank you very much, sir. I think we've already taken a bit of more time, so I will move on quickly to the next session. I think the next session is much more interesting, and I think it's a buzzword called fintech, and everybody is waiting for that session. So quickly get me started with that session. Thank you very much, sir, Parmanai, sir, for taking the time out. And within 20 minutes, I think you grabbed a lot, and I think it gave us a lot of more information. Thank you very much.